All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of our series where we walk through each of the stages of the business life cycle and we talk about what your business should do post COVID-19 based on where your business is right now during the crisis, or more importantly, where it was when we started the crisis. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, we talked about early struggle. Early struggle phase 1, it's about finding a profitable, sustainable market. And it's just a really, really tough time to be starting a business. And so, if you haven't watched the video yet, I'd recommend you check it out. We talk about the 3 options that you have if you had just started a business or you're thinking about starting a business. What should you do right now? Then last week we talked about those businesses who had started, who had made traction, who'd found their profitable, sustainable market. Fancy word for saying they were selling before the crisis. These businesses, we'd say they're in stage 2, and we call that fun. And it's not easy, but man, it's a lot of fun. And for some of those businesses, this has been an incredibly challenging time. Just read a statistic last night, I think it was, that at one point in the pandemic, 50% of small businesses closed, and still to this day, about 30% of businesses are still closed or kind of barely open at this point. And that's a lot of those organizations are fun organizations. They're hanging on, they're fighting through. Some distinct advantages to that. If that's your business, go back and check out the video because you'll find something pretty special in there. What we're talking about today, though, is we're talking about those businesses who got through stage 1, they got through stage 2, and they found themselves right before the crisis started, maybe even years before the crisis started, but they still find themselves in this third stage of the process of the life cycle. We call it Whitewater. And it is that. I mean, in Whitewater, you go from this organization in fun that you almost can't do anything wrong to this organization in Whitewater that you feel like you can't do anything right. It's brutal. I could go on and on about Whitewater because it's such a challenge for businesses. But if you want to know more about it, check out the article I wrote on Tuesday. It's on the blog, 8figurefocus.com/blog. So can't teach the whole model right now, but I do want to jump in and talk about what these organizations can do. So first, we do have to address why they're in Whitewater. Why do organizations progress from this fun stage into Whitewater? Well, they don't do it on purpose. Nobody looks at fun and looks at Whitewater and says, yes, I will take Whitewater. It just doesn't work that way. Instead, what happens, businesses they graduate, which is a terrible idea for the word, but it's really what happens. They graduate from fun into Whitewater because the complexity inside the business overcomes the business's capability of delivering consistent quality. You get big and you get complex, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and you start dropping the ball. And in normal times, Whitewater is brutal. I mean, it's just a very, very painful time to be in a business, very painful time to lead a business. If your business was in Whitewater at the start of the crisis, I would be willing to bet it's been a really, really difficult 4 or 5 months. You know, businesses in Whitewater, they're not on the same footing that a business would be in predictable success. They don't have the same agility that a business would do, you know, if it was in fun when the pandemic started. They're stuck right in between these 2 really wonderful stages, but they're not in either one. And so the timing for you, unfortunately, it was pretty awful. If you were in Whitewater around this stage, it's tough. And you know, the good news of it, though, is that your business isn't over. For some of you, you may have even thought, hey, the business is over before the crisis, but the reality of it, that's just not the case. There's a lot of reasons to that, but I believe your business can make it through. And I actually think that when this is all said and done, it's probably going to be a lot more of an interruption than some business ending event. The way I describe it, you know, we have this kind of deep V idea for the stock market and the economy. And what we're finding with small businesses, for even these medium-sized businesses in Whitewater, is for many of them, that V is deeper and longer, but it is a V. And that means that you started high, you will end up high, and you'll get through. And I'd be willing to bet if you were in Whitewater, you've got the steam to get through. And how do I know this? I know this because a number of the businesses I've been working for over the last couple of months have been in Whitewater. And the awesome thing that I'm seeing about the folks that I'm working with is that resilience that got them this far kicks back in. Some of them, they're looking at me saying, hey, we're sharper than ever. Yeah, there's challenges. Yeah, revenues are down. Yeah, we've got some stuff we don't know how to solve yet, but they're active, they're engaged, and it's awesome to see. And in all this, there's the possibility, even for businesses in Whitewater, there's the possibility that your business will not succeed despite the pandemic or the economic crisis caused by it. It can actually succeed because of it. And hopefully I'll be able to show you how to do that. So there's this picture, and I included it in the article. It's linked in the bio. You can take a look at it if you'd like. But there's this anecdote that I like to use for the process of what it's like to be a business that ends up in Whitewater. And it's this. So bald eagles, awesome hunters, super cool to look at. I've only had the chance to see them in the wild a couple of times, and every time it's just amazing, thing of beauty. And despite how big they are, they can really only carry about 25, 30, 50%. And there's all kinds of debate on this. I researched it for far too long. But let's say between a quarter and a half of their body weight they can pick up, which, most fish that they catch are well within that range. But every once in a while, an eagle will swoop down, hit the water, and then find out that it's latched onto a fish that's a lot bigger than it thought. And the problem that the eagles have, and this is fascinating, never knew it, completely, whatever, you're welcome. The fascinating thing about it is they cannot unlock their claws until they've had an opportunity to stand. And so, it's quite genuinely bit off more than it can chew, and that's exactly what happens for a business in Whitewater. It's it's either one location too many, a few hires too many, too many product lines, too many different services. It always ends up being that one thing that pushes you over the edge. And you go from the business equivalent of a soaring eagle to what the eagles have to do. They actually have to swim out of the water, and so they just kind of flop in the water, and it really is a genuinely pitiful sight. And fortunately they can do it. And unfortunately, the reality of what's going on right now is it's probably going to be a lot like that for your business. And as I'm explaining this, you're probably reading between the lines and saying, yes, that's really how it's been. For the last few months, you've probably been swimming, when you're used to flying, and it's a tough gig. And so what I want to do, though, I want to do a couple things. One, you're not going to be swimming forever. This is going to change. You will get to the shore, and it's going to get better. But there's a right way to do this, and there's a wrong way to do this. And what I want to give you now, I want to give you 3 phases to what I think is the best strategy for a business, really, regardless of industry. Now, the timing is going to be different on it, and how you approach it is going to be a little bit different. But the fundamental stages of this strategy are going to be the same for any business that was in Whitewater. And the word that we use in the predictable success world is to regroup. And it's exactly what's going to have to happen. In regrouping, automatically, there's a sense of taking a step back. And that's what phase 1 of the strategy is really all about. And it's about taking the hit. I'm going to explain that in a minute, but let me introduce the other 2 real quickly. Once you've taken the hit, and why it's so important to take that hit and get a step back is that's where you'll find your footing. And that's really what this strategy is all about, is, okay, how do you find your footing? Because it's only from there that you can go into step 3, which is going on the offensive. Now, those may seem a little bit generic. That's okay. I'm going to show you precisely what that means given your stage of the business life cycle, given what's going on in the environment around us right now. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. So first one here, take the hit. Like I said earlier, getting into Whitewater is all about that reaching just a little bit too far. And really, if it's not happened already, which I'd be shocked if that's the case, but if it's not happened already, you've got to let go. You've got to take a step back. You've got to let that new location slide. You've got to amicably part ways with that big client that you just picked up that you just cannot service. You've got to take whatever that step forward was that got you into Whitewater. You have to take the step back, and it's really tough. It's just like the eagle. Like once your claws are in that thing, man, you do not want to let go, but you have to. And if you don't do that, it's going to be impossible to take on steps 2 and steps 3. And this is one of those things, and I've found most truth in life and a lot of truth in business strategy comes down to this. This is something that's very easy to say, very easy to understand. It's very difficult to do. I have not met a single person who is in Whitewater right now who liked the idea of taking a step backwards. I don't know a single person who's achieved the kind of success that they have to get them into Whitewater in the first place that's happy about marking a point and saying we've failed. That there's nothing fun about that. There's nothing that feels good about that. And the actual act of admitting, hey, this isn't going to work, is the hardest part of this entire process. But when you do, when you take the hit, when you take the step back, when you let the location go, you lay off some staff, temporarily or permanently kill the new product or service, that's the only way that you can make the margin that you need to get back on track. And so again, very simple to say, easy to understand. Don't write it off because it's simple. It's simple because it's true. And it's simple to understand, but it's not difficult to do. And know that I'm with you, I'm for you. I feel that pain, and if there's any way I can help, I can do that, even if it's just someone to talk through, hey, is this really happening? But once you can get through that, that's the hardest part. Honestly, it's the hardest part. It's the very first part. To an extent, if you got hit really hard by the crisis and that happened automatically, it was probably really painful, but it's probably a lot less painful than what the folks are going through if they're hearing this now and realizing, shoot, we still have work to do here. But once you've done it, then it's all about finding your footing, okay? And finding your footing now is as hard to do as it is ever because of the uncertainty that's going around. But the very first thing you have to recognize is there's a difference between uncertainty and a lack of clarity. Now, left to the natural course of life, uncertainty will beget a lack of clarity. But great leadership, folks like Winston Churchill is the one that I keep coming back to right now. They have an uncanny ability to create clarity in the midst of uncertainty. Some of them, they have to work really hard at it. Others do it automatically. But the point for us here is you've got to create clarity. You're not going to be able to change the certainty, right? That's just not going to happen, but you can change the clarity. And there's 2 stages to this. You have to do it for yourself first. Especially as a visionary, you're probably 100 miles ahead of everything that's going on. Whenever something like this happens, crisis happens, and those plans get interrupted, it can be a massive whirlwind. And what we see a lot of folks do that are visionaries, that are wired as visionaries, wired to come up with new ideas and create new solutions, what we see them do is that visionary thing can get stuck in overdrive, and it's just create. But when you're in Whitewater, you can't create your way out of it. And that's what I'm saying. You have to take that hit first, because new and more are not going to be the solution moving forward. So you have to take a pause on the create button. There will be time for that, I promise. But you have to start by getting clarity on, okay, what's the horizon? How far out can you see clearly? If it's a day, great. If it's a week, great. If it's a month, great. But you have to start looking at the farthest horizon you can and getting clarity for yourself on that. Now, lots of ways of doing that. All of them take time. There's no shortcut for getting clarity. You have to take time to do it. There are ways of doing it faster Uh, I've found, that depends on the leader. Sometimes it's easier to get clarity by yourself. Sometimes it's easier to get clarity with your team. Sometimes it's easier to get clarity with a coach or someone outside the organization that can help. Whatever you need, you have to stop everything and get that clarity. Otherwise, you're going to fumble along. It's going to be awkward and weird, and you're not going to be able to move to the next part of this phase, which is to give clarity. It's impossible to get clarity if you're not to give clarity if you've not taken the time to get clear yourself. Quick thing on that, if you don't know what your leadership style is, if you don't know if you're a visionary, operator, processor, or synergist, I'm going to stick a link to the assessment, the description here, and you'll be able to take that. It's absolutely free and massively helpful. So we took the hit. We're working on finding our footing. You've taken the time to get clarity. What do you do next? Okay, so the next thing, like I've said before, you have to give clarity. And remember, when you're giving clarity, you have to keep that visionary over pivot, over create thing. You've got to harness that. And so again, why it's so important to get clarity in the first place is because when you get out of getting clarity mode, you have to put that on pause for as much as you can. Did a whole series on this called Fighting the Fray. In it, there's 7 different things that I recommend. I'll list them here real quickly, but you can find the article and read about it. The main thing is this. As a visionary, you can see further out than anybody else. You will have the tendency to think that everyone sees that far as well. And so you'll talk to them like they see that far out. And because you think that they all know that vision that you know, that you're free to go on and exploring other territories. And especially in times of crisis, that's not true. In times of crisis, your job as the leader is to actually paint a clear picture of the horizon. Step number 1 in that other article. You have to paint a clear picture of the horizon. Where are we going? And that may just be tomorrow, right? It may be a week from now, maybe a month from now, maybe a year from now. But however far out you can see clearly, you have to paint that picture vividly for your team. And you can't just do it once. You have to do it again and again and again. You have to harness your passion for vision, for visioneering, and you have to put that all in on communicating the vision more than creating a new one. Second thing, reinforce your values. We don't have the data to make decisions right now. And so the absolute best way you and your team can be making decisions, especially those high quality team-based decisions that you really need to be making right now, the best way to do that is by reinforcing your values. Because if you don't know what to do and you do what's right with your values, even if it doesn't tend to be tactically right, it's going to move you downfield, and you're going to be able to move on from it faster as well with less collateral damage along the way. So reinforce your values. Third, you got to focus on active prioritization. Because those horizons are so close, I heard it described as we went from playing chess to playing tennis. And it's a great illustration. You've got to be ready to get the ball back over the net. And that takes actively prioritizing. In the beginning, it was almost hourly, and then it was daily. To me, for most places, it's weekly, maybe even monthly at this point. But you have to have that prioritization list, and you have to keep it up to date, and you have to do that actively day in and day out. Fourth one here, celebrate every win. In times of crisis, especially if you're type A, get it done, then you will go into type A, get it done overdrive. But you've got to stop when things look bad and celebrate those things that look good. Even if they're small, even if they're tiny, even if it's one great thing to 1,000 bad things, you gotta celebrate the win. And when you do that, it's easier to get to 2 wins, into 10 wins, into 50 wins, and to get back into that winning form. So find a way to intentionally celebrate with your team. I don't care if you're virtual, I don't care if you're together, I don't care what's going on. You've got to, as a leader, find a way to celebrate with your team. Next one here, you've got to meet one-on-one regularly. Again, especially if you're virtual on this one, but even in person, you've got people on your team, not robots. And these people are facing pressure in the business. If you were in Whitewater, everyone's under pressure and has been under pressure for quite a while now. Now, add to that pressure at home. You've got moms and dads with kids running around while they're trying to work. You've got stuff shut down, social isolation. You've got just all of those factors, the collective grief that's going on, all of these factors. And if you're not taking care of your people, who is? Now, you don't have to hold their hand and you don't have to do kumbaya sessions and all of that kind of stuff. You just have to talk to them one-on-one as a person. It could be 15 minutes every couple of weeks, whatever it is. Make time to meet with them one-on-one. Structure your meetings. A lot of companies I've been working with just kind of thrown into chaos, and they've embraced the chaos, which is good, but then they've perpetuated the chaos in their meetings, and that's not good. There was a short window for that where it was just fire, fire, fire. You've got to be turning that around now. So you've got to be getting that urgent and important balance. You've got to be getting that consistency back into the routine for the business so that you can start getting momentum. That's really where it comes from. And finally, this is not the time to become a dictator. You have to encourage open disagreement and then require absolute commitment. It's disagree and commit. It's cabinet responsibilities. A bunch of different names for this principle, but it's basically this. When you have someone in the meeting, they have a voice and it's to be heard. You need to create an opportunity for people to challenge you if you're wrong. And then you need to create the accountability to challenge them if they didn't speak up in the meeting and went and did something else. You need to have the accountability to challenge them when they agree to something in the meeting and then they do something else. You and your team have to have a united front when they walk out, and the best way to do that is disagree and commit. All right, phase 3. Thanks for hanging with me. We are on the last phase, and this is the fun one. This is where we take something that was, trying to destroy the business, and we turn it into something that's going to massively move it forward. And if your business was in Whitewater and you've gotten through the drudgery and the mud and muck and mire of the first 2 phases in this process, then the great news is you're in a massively beneficial spot, because the net effect of that in predictable success terms is that we've taken a step back into fun. And fun organizations right now, if they can manage cash and they can get through this tactical stuff, they are in a position to do enormously well right now. I mean, it's like scary cool what fun organizations can do. And you actually have a distinct advantage over those fun organizations, and it's gonna be the last thing I share here. So hang around for that. But similar to fun organizations, what are the 3 advantages that you and your business have right now? You may feel like the world's conspiring against you. Whitewater's tough, in the mud, don't know what to do. There's hope, and there's actually a significant advantage for you. There's 3 of them, and this is what it is. First one, you've got an abundance of operators. Most Whitewater businesses still have a lot of operators. Operators, they're the type of person who loves to finish and fix. And when you mix that with your ability to start and solve, you've got a recipe for ingenuity, profitability, and growth. And it's like, again, it's scary cool what visionary operator combos are doing right now. The rhythm of that is get into a meeting, find out what needs to get done, and then let your operators go. Build the system around them. Don't strap them down to a bunch of processes and checklists and this and that. Give your operators a clear instruction, paint the picture of the future, give them clarity, and then let them go, and you'll be amazed at what they can accomplish. An operator can outwork anybody, and they are outworking anybody. We're going to have to come through and take care of them as this continues to progress. But if you've not done it already, you got to take the leash off and let them run, because they can do amazing things right now. Second thing is, you and your organization, you have an above average tolerance for risk. Do not forget that. So many businesses, especially in Whitewater, they can almost start to lose that taste for risk, or they think we're on the edge of ending. You aren't on the edge of ending. In fact, you're in a great position. And if you can start to take on risk, especially if you can start taking on risk for your clients, you're going to position yourself to really accelerate as your industry and your area start to come back online after the crisis. I'm seeing a lot of businesses, this is already happening in a big way. Many businesses I talked to back in March, April, even May, are now looking at saying, hey, June was our biggest month ever. Like, we don't know what's happening. And it's because they did this. It's because they followed this pattern. So it really works. And a big factor in there is that you can take risk. The big players out there they're not moving. They just aren't, massive companies right now, they're just going to wait this out, and that's okay. Let them do that, because you're not going to wait it out and you're going to win because of it. Smallest ones as well, average small business had 17 days of cash when the crisis hit. That was well over 100 days ago now, right? And so for you, you've probably got a little bit more cash than most of the new businesses. And you've got just an incredible opportunity ahead of you. Second thing is, in Whitewater, or third thing, sorry, we lose our agility, but because we're taking those couple of steps back, because you've done that hard work in phases 1 and 2, you'll probably find very quickly that you've got your agility back, and you're gonna love it. I mean, it's the glory days all over again. It's gonna be wonderful. You're gonna be amazed. And the very last thing I'm going to close with this is that you have a distinct advantage even over businesses that were in fun when the crisis hit, and it's this: that you've got the experience of tasting a little bit of the sting of Whitewater. You've got an experience of feeling the pain of the complexity that's coming up. You've seen a part of the road that folks in fun haven't seen yet. And so what that allows you to do, it allows you to push further and get closer to that without crossing over the line. And what that's going to do for you, the silver lining in all of this, is you're actually going to be able to extend the time in fun beyond what would naturally be the case. You're going to be able to push further in the organic growth stage, achieve more in the organic growth stage than you would under normal circumstances. And what that's going to do, it's going to give you more momentum as you walk into that Whitewater phase next time. But this time you're going to know what's out there. You're going to know the early signs of it, and you're going to be able to address those signs right when they happen, rather than just bumping up against it and spinning your wheels in the process. So I'm going to close with this: don't stop. If your business was in Whitewater to start this, if you've taken some huge hits in the process, I firmly believe that your business is far from over. There's setbacks, but you have an incredible set of advantages if you do the hard work now. Don't stop. Don't try to wait this out. You've really got to push forward. And when you do, you really are in a prime position to do that incredibly well. I'd encourage you, we're putting out a lot of content right now that's going to be massively helpful for you. Just how do we do that? I've got a couple of articles on getting your sales back on track. I've got a couple of articles on leading your team through crisis, and several articles on, okay, what do we do from a sales and marketing perspective right now, because people aren't buying, but some people are, and I'm going to show you in some of that other content exactly how to do that. So if you take these steps, if you take the hit now, it's hard, but if you do it, if you'll find your footing, and go on the offensive, then I honestly would not be surprised if a year from now you look back on this time and count it as one of the greatest blessings in your business. I hope that's the case. I believe it's going to be the case, and I'm looking forward to hearing about it. All right, take care.